Today with Ray. Hello, my friends. Today I want to share some of my thoughts regarding our industry's venues, peer groups, watering holes, if you will, the places the Document Imaging Channel, those friends of mine that sell supply and service print equipment, show up. And folks, I've been thinking a lot about this over the last couple of years, and I want to share my thoughts today. And hopefully these thoughts can inspire some more conversation. Hopefully these thoughts can shake things up, because that's really what I like to do here on the end of the day. I like to shake things up where people start to think, maybe think a little bit different. I don't expect that all the people that watch the end of the day with Ray will agree with today's episode, but I talk to dealers out there, I talk to leaders out there, and a lot of the things that I'm going to talk about today won't be the first time you heard them. And it surely won't be the first time I heard them. Maybe it's the first time that someone brought the reality to life. And I'm going to do that here today. But before I do that, I got to share this post I put out there on LinkedIn, because this is really just a favor to the MPSA. I've noticed lately that they're kind of ramping up, looking for people to give the awards to. They got to get these awards out pretty soon, and they're looking for people to nominate people. And I'm thinking maybe they should nominate HP, because I believe HP amplified their insanity better than any other OEM. HP amplified their insanity better than any other OEM, and they should get an award from the MPSA for that. Yes, they announced that they're going to paint their machines the color of your grandma's kitchen appliances. Maybe your great-grandma's kitchen appliances. I don't know if they're coming out with avocado green, but I wouldn't doubt it. Ladies and gentlemen, this is absolutely the most absurd thing I've ever seen in my life. 20 years ago, our friends over at Panasonic tried this. Didn't really work out really well. At least they had some kind of nice, cool colors. But I don't get it. I mean, do they think that offices have shag carpeting? Oh, yeah, that'll match my shag carpeting pretty good. Folks, I could do a whole episode on this because it's so absurd. But I just wanted to throw this out there because I really believe the MPSA is starving to give people awards. This would be a great award to give HP. The OEM that amplified their insanity better than any other OEM. But let's just jump right into today's episode. When I look at our peer groups, our venues, our watering holes, if you will, this is what I see. I see vendors seeking dealers. It's really about venues where vendors are seeking dealers. And I think we need to change it to this: dealers seeking knowledge. It's more important than ever that dealers are presented the knowledge they need to make the transition. They need to seek the knowledge to make the transition. And unfortunately, I think they're getting bombarded with vendors seeking them. I put this down here. Maintaining business relationships cannot be the goal of these venues or clubs. Maintaining business relationships cannot be the goal. That sounds kind of tough. Look, I get it, man. Some of you folks have known each other for 50 years. That's fantastic. You can still be friends. You can still play shuffleboard and stuff together. But maintaining relationships can't be the goal of the club. Instead, the goal must be maintaining business relevance. These clubs have to be about maintaining business relevance, not maintaining business relationships. Business relationships are very easily transitioned into friends. Some of them. It's something to think about, folks. This slide here is of this really fancy modern bridge on the right. And over here we got this old steel bridge. Looks like it was built in the 50s. And ladies and gentlemen in the Document Imaging Channel, here's what I believe. I believe you have to go to the other side because the bridge is already built. We can't try to drag this old bridge into the IT services world, into the managed services world, and that's what we're doing. We have the architects who built the bridge to yesterday, constructing the bridge to the future. We got old architects who constructed the bridge to yesterday, trying to build the bridge to the future. Just ain't working. It's been over 15 years since our industry's tried to really get their head around this managed IT services thing. And quite honestly, we need to build the bridge from the other direction. We need to build a bridge from the other direction. Relationships over knowledge build bridges that will collapse. Relationships over knowledge will build a bridge, but that bridge will in fact collapse. We need to go over here to this world of technology services that already exist. We need to be doing co-locating meetings with these folks. We need to be seeking knowledge We need to be seeking knowledge. We need to be in workshops with people that are doing where we're trying to go. And they're doing it with proof. They're doing it successful. It's not made up stuff. Folks, this is important. Please, the bridge is already built. We need to go over to this world and then connect that world to ours, eventually replacing our world. Because we are replacing our world. It's not about a 1990 print business model surviving. We all know that's not going to happen. It's about this new world of selling broader technology services, replacing the old world of selling a product that needed a supply and needed a man to go fix it or a woman to go fix it. Those days are over. The world's changing rapidly all around us. So I put this together, and I want you all to think about this. I call it Treehouse Hangouts. Is it time for change? Because the treehouse, that's where all the kids get together, tell each other stories, and drink each other's Kool-Aid. And I want to ask a couple of questions here. And be honest with your answers, folks. A lot of these treehouse rules are all the same. No negativity. We hear people actually advertising, come join us, there's no negativity. Here's the question I got to ask all these people that come up with the rule of no negativity. Who decides what's negative? Let's be honest. There's folks watching today's episode, they're going to say Ray is so negative on our clubs. He's negative, negative, negative. Mr. Negative about our clubs. Some people are going to watch today's video and say that was the positive thing I've ever seen about how we could transform our clubs. So the question I got to ask the rule writers of the tree houses is, who decides what's negative? No studying. A lot of these clubs, they don't want to study. If they study, will substantiation or validation destroy the treehouse fantasy? Don't come up here in this treehouse and start studying. Start demanding substantiality. My gosh, if we have to substantiate stuff, if we have to validate stuff, oh, that would be a terrible thing. No conflicts. Let me ask you this. Is everyone supposed to assimilate to a status quo? No conflicts. Conflicts is where things start that are born, right? This is where they're born. This is where innovation's born. It's because people are challenging the status quo. No outsiders. No outsiders. Are a few deciding on who could join? You got these tree houses. You got one or two people in charge of the tree house, and they're going to decide who's going to join, who's not going to join. Are people asking to come into the tree house? It's all about fun. I have to ask this again. Who decides what's fun? Because personally, I think it's fun as hell to crush the crap out of status quo. I have a ball doing that. I think when you find the cracks in status quo is where you shove the dynamite. When you find the cracks in status quo is where you shove the dynamite. To me, that's fun. You get to blow stuff up, right? How are you going to build something new unless you blow the old thing up, right? Ladies and gentlemen, if we're going to go from vendors seeking dealers to dealers seeking knowledge, we got to make some changes, and we got to think about some things within these groups. We got to think about its governance. I believe that having a board governance and a board in charge of everything that this group does is not sustainable. It's not sustainable. I believe these clubs and these organizations need to have executive directors that run the clubs, that are responsible to a P&L, that literally go out and decide what that club's going to do. And that board of directors, well, they have the power to fire and hire that executive director. But that board of directors must be installed by all of the members. That board of directors must be installed by all of the members. All of the members must have a vote on who's going to represent them on the board. But these boards, they're great people that are on the boards of our industries groups. But they also have day jobs. And quite honestly, they don't have time to go out and explore the unknown. They don't have time. And what's happening is, I believe, is we're building these complacency groups. And these boards are promoting board members into other positions. The board is building its own evolution, not really the members. And I think that's a scary, scary path. Because without someone dedicated to the research, to the exploring the unknown, to being obsessed with making sure that group remains relevant, it won't remain relevant. It won't, folks. Maybe now's the time to look at how these boards are put together, how these groups are put together. Maybe it's time that we look at the bylaws of these groups and see if there isn't some opportunity to make some changes. The dealers must decide if knowledge can be sacrificed for relationships. And I'm going to say this again to all the dealer friends out there. Are you willing to sacrifice knowledge based on relationships? And the reason I'm asking you that is because maybe the dealers just need to pay more to be part of these groups. Maybe the dealers need to have more skin in the game in these groups. And if they had more skin in the game in these groups, they'd pay attention more to the relevancy of the group. Look, I've said this before. There's absolutely nothing wrong with people getting together, slapping each other on the back and saying hi to each other once a year. Who cares? I mean, those are reunion venues. There's nothing wrong with that. But when you want to meet for a continuous relevance, it's going to take a lot of hard work. A lot of hard work. And I'm not saying that these boards don't work hard. I'm just saying that our world is changing so fast. These board members are so busy with their own businesses that they really have to have a management executive in charge that's held accountable. Folks, I put together this list of questions I'm going to ask them. Let's just kind of go through this. Stick with me, because I think a lot of you will hear what I'm saying, and maybe this will help us move in a different direction. So I want to ask, is this the reality? And then I'm going to say, if so, why is it the reality? Memberships are way down and continue declining. Is that a reality? Are the memberships automatically declining as dealers are consumed or migrate to more relevant groups? Why is relevance being questioned? Folks, when you look at some of these groups, you're starting to see these splinters going on. And why? Why are people feeling a need that, we're going to split off into our own group? Let's take these 15 or 20 dealers and build our own group over here. Folks, when the group started splintering, that's to me when the slap in the face should have happened. That we better think about this a little bit, because I remember those days. Think about those NAMDA meetings and those things were crazy big, right? Everybody driving toward relevance. We could do this again. We just got to explore the unknown to get there. Are new members seeking you, or are you seeking members? Oh, and don't be fooled by the hype clubs. Don't be fooled by the hype clubs, because that's just hype. Hype over reality is not going to make us relevant. Never was, never did, never will, right? Relevance comes from hard work. Relevance comes from continuous knowledge. Relevance comes from continuous knowledge. It doesn't come because we all gathered around and told each other how much we like each other. That's not about relevance. That's a reunion. Does your club have unique programs in jeopardy of relevance or jeopardy of retirement? Folks, a lot of these clubs have been around a long, long time. Are there things that made the club relevant to the dealers? Are there things that dealers just said, woo, I'm going to do this because of this. This club does this, so I got to join that club. What is this? Is this still relevant? These are things to think about, and think about hard. Is there talk amongst members regarding needed changes? How long have they been talking? Folks, there's been talk for a long time about needed changes. I've been talking about some of this stuff for over 5 years. But yet, these venues are pretty much the same as they were 5 years ago, other than the fact that the splintering off is getting bigger, causing pressure to the main club. You all have to ask yourself the question, what's taking so long to make the changes? Could be what's taken so long the way the clubs are governed. Could there be some shakeup in the way the clubs are governed to speed up a quicker path to relevance? Are the vendors accountable or merely funds? Think about it, folks. We got some clubs out there that vendors show up to. I call them the charity clubs. Vendors will show up, write some checks so everybody can gather around and have fun. Nothing wrong with that. Just remember, having fun doesn't mean you're on a path to relevance. It just means you're having fun. And I got to ask the dealers, are you willing to pay more? Are dealers willing to put more money in the game? If they could trade these venues from vendors seeking dealers to vendors seeking knowledge, would dealers invest in that? I believe they would. Are the distances of transformation too far apart between the dealers? I want you to think about this. We have dealers at all different revenue numbers, right? We got $100 million, $300 million, $400 million, $500 million dealers, and we got $1 million dealerships. We got some that are sub 1 million. They're not all seeking the same knowledge. And unfortunately, what's happened in our industry is all the big players that already have consumed a lot of the knowledge all the little players are trying to get, they're bored. You know, it's like the really smart kid that has to be in 3rd grade when he really should be in 6th or 7th. They're bored. And that's kind of what's going on right now in our clubs. The problem is the club should be for the industry transitioning. The club shouldn't be just for the biggest ones in the room. But there could be breakouts for the biggest ones in the room. There could be a structure where these clubs that are at similar size and a similar maturity get together, but we all get together at the same venue. So that the little companies can look at these big companies and say, one day I can be them. But ladies and gentlemen, we're eliminating the big companies from even showing up, or we're having groups where only the big ones show up. And of course the vendors get all excited about that. Oh, I get to show up to this meeting and sell all the biggest dealers in the world. At the end of the day, you're probably already selling all the biggest dealers in the world your stuff. You should be anyway, right? Come on, folks. Are the clubs being fooled into complacency through a lack of scrutiny? That's my last question. Is it the lack of scrutiny that's fooled you all into complacency? Is it the lack of accountability that's fooled you all into complacency? Because, ladies and gentlemen, it's easy to be fooled into complacency. If the club in their heart and in their mind is on a path toward relevance, it'll become complacent real quick if no one in the club ever asks, what time are we going to get there? A group of people on a mission for continuous relevance can fool themselves into complacency if no one in the group stops and asks, what time are we going to get there? Just some things to think about, my friends, because we all know this. Status quo is the killer of all that'll be invented. Don't get stuck in status quo, and I'll see you all.